gratitude is the most practical, fastest, most efficient way to get to a positive evaluation of what it is.
Well, welcome everybody to the Sparks of Gratitude podcast. We are so excited to begin a new day full of gratitude. What are you grateful for today? We are grateful for you, and we're especially grateful for our guest today, Dr. Paul Jenkins, the author of Pathological Positivity. We're going to ask him to talk a little bit about this and the principles that he teaches in here. He didn't invent the principles. He just knows how to teach them, right? And he does it very well. So before we get started and let him really run the show from here on out, Kathy and I want to explain how in the world did we connect with Dr. Paul? Why is he important to us? And why we believe he can be important to you. So many years ago, we were introduced to Dr. Paul by a family member when Dr. Paul was actually a practicing psychologist with individual clients. And we went to visit with him because we had no idea what we were doing as parents or our relationships with each other. And every time we would visit with Dr. Paul, we would leave saying, we didn't learn anything new. We just learned that we already knew. And Dr. Paul would just remind us, right? What so many times, oh yeah, well, this is.
Well, I do have to say, we did leave with a bag full of tools.
That's exactly what it was.
Amazing tools. And Dr. Paul taught us how to apply them in different scenarios, but the basic principles were there.
Yep. So we had a disorganized drawer and he helped us organize it and say, okay, this is how you use the tools that you're in here. And every now and again, we'd go back for a refresh and we love it.
So I have to jump in, and I'm enjoying listening to this. I would love to hear more of that story if you've got more to share. But I just have to jump in because what you said just now, you didn't learn anything new. Maybe you learned it in a new way, or it was packaged differently, or we put it into a nice little tool box for you, or a tool belt, or whatever you want to think about that. But what you just said is so profound because my job is to illuminate the obvious, which is so cool. I get paid to tell people things they already know or to show them things they already see, but there's obvious things that are completely unnoticed until it's called to your attention. You know, even like your shirt. Can you feel it?
Now I can.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Yes.
yeah, now that I mention it, and technically you could feel it before I said something, but you didn't notice it. And now that I've mentioned it, it's obvious, but it was unnoticed until I called it to your attention. Yep. Or the fact that we're speaking English. Did you notice?
I did. I also speak Spanish, so.
Well, and it's interesting that as soon as I say that, it's like, oh, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's so obvious, right? But until it's called to your attention, it's just like autopilot. Mm-hmm. Right? We're just kind of rolling with it and we're not really aware of it. And much of what's going on in our own mind is in that space.
Yeah, and we're so grateful for that and the things that you called to our attention. I don't recall which one of them, if it was one of the old thinkers, Aristotle or somebody who said something that there's, you don't learn, you remember. I don't remember exactly how it was, but do you know where I'm going with this? Is that familiar to you? But we remember.
And that may be, Randy, because we've got this connection to truth and principles of truth. And I think as human beings, we really resonate with those. And when they're brought to our attention, it's like, oh, yeah. It's like the lights go on, that little aha moment where it's like your soul is connecting to something that it already knew.
Yeah.
And Dr. Paul has helped us remember many things, many aha moments. And so, Dr. Paul, really, you are the genesis of where Sparks of Gratitude was born. And we want you to know that. So many years ago, when we originally met, and it was originally Kathy Maybe you can explain where Dr. Paul challenged you to something.
Well, I believe it was marriage counseling. I don't remember exactly the reason because we went to see you for lots of things. Anytime we had a problem that we didn't know how to fix or what to do, we're like, let's go see Dr. Paul. He will help us find the answers. And you brought up the idea of doing a gratitude journal, and you challenged us to write
Yeah.
3 things we're grateful for each day. And I believe later you challenged me to write 3 things that I'm grateful for that are hard. And I think that's where we started to notice the difference. But we did this for many years. We practiced this for many years. And when one time particular, we went through something really hard, not that it was easy, but the practice of gratitude, the years of that practice allowed us to see the blessings that were all around us during this really hard time that I don't think we would have seen had we not done this practice.
Right. And it didn't make that thing any easier. It, the way in your terminology, Dr. Paul, lightning struck. And it wasn't a light bulb in our head. It was lightning struck, and it hurts to get struck by lightning. And we were still suffering by being struck by lightning. And maybe we'll have you kind of talk about that. But when Kathy challenged to do that, I should have been prepared with this. Afterwards, we felt like the way that we went through that experience and looked at each other and talked about, wow, how we noticed that the practice of gratitude helped us get through it with a different attitude. We felt the nudge from a higher power that we needed to do something about this. And so over the last few years, we've given away hundreds of these gratitude journals.
Sparks of gratitude.
And that's where we began. We knew that we needed to do something. And so we try to give the gift of gratitude. And we said, we don't know how to do this and what form it's going to take. And so we started with this. And we knew that somehow along the way, this might mean conversations with other people to talk about their experiences and what they can share with others. And Dr. Paul, you're the first.
I am so honored by that. And I'm excited about what you guys are doing. Kathy, as you were sharing that story, I can't remember even how long we've known each other.
It could be almost 10 years.
It could be 10 years, maybe even longer.
I'm thinking it's probably about a decade.
Yeah. I think our daughter, Penelope, was about 4. And she's 14.
Well, there you go. Okay.
Or even longer.
It creeps up on you. You got to watch out. Time accelerates as you get older. Have you noticed?
Yes.
And I've learned some things since then. I'm so glad that I invited you to find the gratitude in the hard stuff. And I had an intuitive sense that that would help. And I had seen it help in my clinical practice. But then several years later, I ran into Kevin Clayson. I don't know if you guys know Kevin, but he's totally got to be on your show. His book, Flip the Gratitude Switch, and You've Got the Light Switch cover.
Yeah, we don't have him, but we want to get him on here.
All right, well, that's going to happen because I'll twist his arm until he says yes. Here's what I learned from Kevin, and this is so profound. Because most people, when they do their gratitude journaling, they do it in a way that's kind of powered down, where the switch isn't quite turned on yet. And Kevin even shares this in his book. When you walk into a dark room and you have to navigate your way to the other side of the room, and maybe there's all kinds of stuff piled around in the room, you can't see it. What do? You flip the switch. The switch does not make all the stuff go away. It makes it possible for you to navigate your way through it. And so his flip the gratitude switch idea is like, let's just illuminate this whole thing with gratitude, and it doesn't make the painful stuff go away. It doesn't take out the challenges that you're facing. It illuminates them so that you can navigate through this experience. And I love that imagery. But here's the other thing he taught me. Most people do the light lifting. It's kind of like if you went to the gym, right? And you're going to go every day. Now that's going to help your health and your strength, right? Well, maybe. What if when you show up to the gym, you go up to the front reception desk there, right inside the front doors, and you pick up a pencil and you do 5 reps with your right arm, and then you switch that pencil to your left and you do 5 reps with the left, and then you set it down and come back the next day and do the same thing. Okay, that's not going to help you much. Why?
Not much. Not much resistance.
No resistance. Put on some weight here, right? Let's see if we can work those muscles and actually put on some weight. And most people, when they do a gratitude list, they put the easy stuff down: health and families and puppies and rainbows and indoor plumbing. And it's the easy stuff. Anybody can be grateful for that. What really powers it up is when you invite your marvelous mind, your brain, to tell you what you're grateful for in the hard stuff. That's what's game changing. That's what's life saving. I've seen this save lives, you guys.
So when I was, and you can talk about this later, but I re-watched some recorded coaching that you call the Positivity Power Up, which, I mean, anybody will provide how they can find that.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can go to, you can tell them where to go. But I was rewatching that, and you talk about that challenge where you challenge people not to just write in a gratitude journal, but it's a gratitude power up. You're going next level. And in half of those things that you recommend that they do is to write what they're grateful for about those different things. But you also talk about how this saves lives. And so maybe tell a little bit some stories you have there of how that happens, or experiences where you've seen what that changed. What is gratitude an antidote for?
I have seen people who are actively suicidal, who, when they do the gratitude power up, are no longer suicidal. When I say it saves lives, I mean that very literally. And not only that, it saves and enriches all 7 of our key relationships.
Can you tell us about those key relationships?
You want to know what they are?
Yes.
Kathy, you don't know what your 7 key... It's okay. I threw that out there because a lot of people are like, what? What 7 keys? Mm-hmm. Your 7 key relationships are, I think, in this order of importance. Number 1, your creator. And I'm not here as your spiritual guide. I'm just acknowledging that people need to come to terms somehow with their source. And people have different beliefs about that, but I think that's number 1, your creator. Second, yourself. Randy, you were pointing to yourself when I was starting out with the list.
I'm cheating because this morning I watched a recorded version of Dr. Paul teach these 7 relationships.
You did your homework.
You did.
Wow. And some people skip this when they forget that it's a relationship, and they'll go be so kind and sweet and forgiving to everyone, except for one, where they are cruel and demanding and judgmental right here.
Yeah.
Where it probably matters the most.
Well, and something I'm going to cut in. You're going to go through all 7, but number 1, creator, number 2, self. And there's something that I've heard you repeat over and over is that if you talked to somebody the way that they talk to themselves, you might not be friends anymore.
Yes.
So, but that's an illuminating thing to think about.
Yeah. I've said that directly to my clients before. Hey, if I talk to you the way you talk to you, would we still be friends? And they're like, I would fire you so fast.
So those are the first 2, creator, self. There's 5 more.
Next is spouse. Okay. I used to put family next, but I've broken that down into 3 distinct areas of family. So we're going, 3rd is spouse. 4th is your children. And 5th is extended family, meaning everybody who's not your spouse or kids, but you still call them family. Your parents, uncles, aunts, cousins, people like that. And pets, I don't know. People get to decide where their pets fit. Because for some people, that's family, right? Okay. After family is everybody else, okay? Other people. So this includes your friends, your neighbors, people in your community, in your church or synagogue, starving children in Africa. They all make the list. They're all important. They're not as important as your family is to you. So that's why I put these in a hierarchy. And then finally is things. That's number 7. Your relationship with things. We call that stewardship, and that includes money and property and all of the stuff that comes into your life.
And so you've described that gratitude can save those 7 relationships.
All 7. It can save and enrich all 7 of your key relationships. It's powerful. And it is the fastest way I know to get to a positive evaluation of what it is. Now, I've developed a model because you hear it all the time, right? Just think positive. And people throw it out there as if they know what it means. Most people don't. And it can become this trite, fluffy, motivational speaker kind of a thing until you understand that your brain is constantly doing at least two processes: evaluation and creation. And you can't turn either of them off any more than you can turn off gravity. When's the last time you woke up and thought, oh, I wonder if gravity's on? It tends to be, right?
Yeah.
So understanding that that principle is on and it's going to affect your life helps you to navigate your life in a way that you're not running off of cliffs. This is good, right? So when we understand that our brain is constantly judging or evaluating, so those words are almost interchangeable. I said evaluation, but it's judgment, right? I would invite you, dear listener, as you're listening to this, to notice something. You are constantly judging, aren't you? Now I see Randy and Kathy smiling about this. Yeah, because you know, right? You're constantly judging yourself pretty harshly sometimes. You judge your spouse, you judge your kids, you judge your neighbors, your coworkers, you judge the economy, the government, the weather. You're judging me. It's cool, I'm judging you. You can't turn it off. Just notice that you're doing it. Now, this word evaluation implies comparison with some standard. So in order to judge something, you have to compare it to something else, right? So sometimes when I'm giving a talk or a presentation, I'll ask my audience, am I a tall man? And I get various responses to that. I'm 6'2", okay? And on a podcast, it's helpful to say that because people, don't have anything to compare me to until I give them that number. But then I usually show a slide of me standing next to Mark Eaton. You guys remember who Mark Eaton is?
He's a little taller than 6'2".
He's 7'4", right? And so standing next to Mark, I look like a shrimp. So am I a tall man? Well, your answer to that depends on who or what you compare me to.
Right. I'm 5'1", so you are tall to me.
Yes, right. And if you stood next to Mark, you could probably, hide behind one of his legs or something. So just notice that your brain is always doing this evaluation, right? And you can't turn it off. So just notice that you're judging. Here's where gratitude fits in, because you've probably heard this as well too. It is what it is. Have you heard that?
Yeah, and that used to annoy the heck out of me.
Oh, it
many
can be
years ago.
so annoying, depending on who's saying it and why. But if all it means is things the way they are right now without changing anything. Okay, it's who you are, it's who you're with, it's what you have, it's the way things have been going. It is what it is. What is your brain doing with what it is? It's evaluating it. You're constantly judging your what it is. Now, just to appreciate where we're going with this model, notice this. What it is all you've got. Is that true? And I'm not saying it's all you could have. We're getting to that. But it's all you've got by definition. And what it is, the way it is right now, no matter what it is, could always be worse. True?
True.
I'm getting some sparks nods.
Very true.
Yep. Absolutely true. And also,
it could also always be
better.
So your what it is, whatever it is always right there between better and worse. And if that's true, then, and if it's true that you're constantly judging, what that means is your brain, your marvelous mind, is taking your what it is, comparing it to some standard. And if you don't have a standard, you'll make one up, and you've got a really great imagination. And so you'll imagine or compare it to something better or worse, and you'll come up with your judgment. I don't know if I shared with you guys, I recently got a call from my son saying, Dad, I have cancer.
We didn't know that.
Yeah, still pretty fresh. And I want you to know, and I'm proud of being a black belt in positivity. And I actually practice what I preach. Okay, now cancer is what it is. And I heard myself have this thought after my son called me. I thought, I'm so grateful that I didn't get a call from his wife saying he had been killed in a head-on collision. Okay, so what just changed?
You compared it to something that would have been worse.
In my mind, that would have been worse, which puts me in a better position. It doesn't eliminate the cancer. It is what it is, right? But here's the other thing I've noticed, you guys. Everything that happens has upsides and downsides. So when we're doing a gratitude power up, I want you to take the hard stuff. In fact, I've kind of upgraded the assignment, Kathy, since when I first invited you to do it.
I will take
I
notes.
call it 25-5.
Okay.
You do 25 things. Now you get 12 freebies, okay? 12 health and rainbows and puppies and indoor plumbing. You can put that stuff on your list. But for 5 days, you make a list of 25 things. Don't repeat anything on tomorrow's list. It's on today's. And at least half of your list every day has to be about the cancer, the collision, the divorce, the bankruptcy, whatever what it is. And I'm not saying you have to be grateful for the cancer. I mean, that's probably asking too much. But what I am saying is open it up. Peel it back, open it up, do some mining in there to find something that you are grateful for. You guys, in the last month, I have spent more quality time with my oldest son than I have in a decade. Am I grateful for that?
I bet you are.
Oh, profoundly. So sweet, that peace. Now, am I grateful for the cancer? That's where I found it.
Yeah.
I flew out there to support his first round of chemotherapy 2 weeks ago. My wife is there now for round 2. Mm-hmm. And we're connecting with this little family that has 5 of our grandkids in it.
Wow.
In a much closer, more intimate way than we have in the last decade. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I mean, they live in Chicago, so.
So I have to mention what I love about that practice. And I've shared it with people before, and there is some pushback. But what I think it's so wonderful is you are where you are, like you said.
Yeah.
And there's nothing we can do about it. We can sit and wallow in self-pity, or we can choose the gratitude route. So facing where we are right now, comparing it to it could be worse. Now, some people might not love the sound of that. Well, I have to compare it to other people's situations or just worse. I think what that allows you to do is all of a sudden you're thinking, okay, well, where I am isn't so bad when you compare it to it could be worse.
Compared to something worse, it really is better.
You would like it to be better, great. But right now, because it could be worse, I think it frees your mind. It almost hacks your mind to think, okay, now I can move forward in a better spot. It makes where you are better. To move forward easier. I don't know if that makes any sense. Can you explain how that works?
It makes total sense, Kathy, because what you're getting at right now is simple distance theory. I don't know what we're going to call it, but check it out. We want something better, right?
Yes.
And I'm not leaving you hanging. We're going there next because our brain is also constantly creating and creating what is to be. That doesn't exist yet. We haven't created it yet. Mm-hmm. And what do you want? Something better or something worse than what you've already got. Which one do you want?
Well, my view is we're always going to choose something. We might not be conscious of what that choice is.
Right. And becoming aware and conscious of that. Look, until you see it as a choice, it's not. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's so important to become aware of that. I call that metacognition, which is thinking about thinking. And be careful, you can hurt yourself. But notice that you can do this. And so as you think about your thinking, that puts you back into choice or control about which direction we're going to go. But back to the distance theory. If we want something better, what is the shortest route to get there? Is it starting from this is good or starting from this sucks?
This is good.
Yes. And it changes the energy. Mm-hmm. Energy precedes outcome. That is so important to remember. We have the power to make a mess. Have you noticed?
We're pretty good at that one.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to project onto everybody in the world. I know that I'm pretty good at it, but I'm willing to bet that everybody is good at making a mess.
And part of that gets back to the second law of thermodynamics. It's called entropy. And it's just a law of physics that says that everything will progress toward a more disorganized state naturally. What that means is it's always easier to make a mess than it is to make a masterpiece. Always. It's a law of the universe. Get used to it. But the fact that we can make a mess is really good news. Because if we can make a mess, we can make
a
masterpiece.
So, well, we can make, period. Is that what you're saying? We can make, period?
We can make.
Create.
That is really good news. Now, what are we going to make?
Exactly.
Well, that depends on some choice. And you'll notice that elevation requires effort. Mm-hmm. Light requires power. Default is down.
Yeah.
So, of course, it's going to be harder to make a masterpiece than it is to make a mess. Welcome to thermodynamics.
So this is what I love about what you do, Dr. Paul, and I strive to be like you, because there's complex principles that are out there in the universe that have been around that are real, true principles, law of thermodynamics and so on. But what did it take over the centuries of time is people to discover and define them, and then define them in a way for simple people like me to understand it, or to be able to take it and say, what am I going to do about it? Right. And I think something that you are excellent at, from my perspective, is taking sometimes complex things like the human brain and distilling it to principles and then tools that people can hold and walk away with.
Well, and what I love about what you just said, Randy, it's a therefore what, right? I mean, we can sit around and philosophize all day and talk about principles of psychology and thermodynamics or whatever. And at the end of the day, therefore what? What am I going to do to apply this principle? And gratitude is the most practical, fastest, most efficient way to get to a positive evaluation of what it is. And I don't even care what it is. I mean, that sounds cold. I care. But it doesn't matter. All right? I told you what it is cancer. And I could tell you more about it. And it's interesting because as I give you more information about that, like the fact that it has not metastasized and spread to his lungs and his heart and his brain, then what is your reaction to that?
That just makes it sound better and better. The more you describe it.
He still has cancer.
Yeah.
Right? But look what your brain is doing. So compared to something worse, I mean, I'll take this, right? And there's so many things I'm grateful for about this. That puts us into that place where, Kathy, earlier when we were talking about, what's the best place to start when we go into creation mode? You want to start from this sucks or from this rocks?
This rocks.
Yeah. And can I tell Dr. Paul, this is about you, but there's something I need to, make very clear about Kathy. I think inherently she has been wired and to always be the one to respond with, what am I going to do about it? And to be motivated by that. I think it was inherent in her. She understood and took those principles of evaluation of what could be worse. That seemed to me to be something natural in her to respond that way, and not to me. And she's been, in a lot of circumstances in our life, the one that responds that way and grabs me by the neck and pulls me along saying, you'll get it soon enough. And eventually I do. But we've got through a lot because of that. The strength that she's had to evaluate with that perspective and then say, now what am I going to do about it? And the word that you mentioned a moment ago is, first is evaluation, that judgment of it is what it is, could be worse, but it also could be better. But then that brings the next step, which is, you said, creation. We can make, right? We can make a mess or we can make something else. So
tell us about creation.
Well, as we get into the creation mode, And by the way, I know some of you, if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, this would be really nice to have some way to remember all this, I've got a free download of my mini book, Portable Positivity, where I describe the entire model. Okay, you'll get the visuals, you'll get the whole description. You even get a picture of me next to Mark Eaton. All right, just so that you can remember what we talked about there. Just go to drpauljenkins.com, spelled with a DR, pauljenkins.com / no, this is going to be hard to remember, / sparks. Okay, so we can tie it right back to sparks of gratitude. And Randall and Kathy Sparks, who are, the brilliant hosts of this, drpauljenkins.com / sparks. I'll give you a free digital download of this, and if you pay for the shipping, I'll send you the cute little book that'll fit
That
right
is
in your
so
pocket.
awesome. Thank you, Dr. Paul.
And that will give you a way to remember it. So if you're struggling to, kind of wrap your head around this, get the visuals, download the mini book, and I think you're going to see pretty clearly how all of this fits together. Back to your question, Kathy, the creation mode. Before we talk too much about what that looks like, notice the feelings. And feelings often translate to energy, and energy precedes outcome. So focus on the feelings for just a minute as you think about what's coming. And I want to point out first that you don't know what's coming. Oh, you've got guesses. You've got predictions. You've got imagination. And we already decided you've got a great imagination. So when you imagine or predict or expect that what's coming is even worse than what you've already got, how do you feel?
Anxious.
Not great.
You nailed it. Yeah, anxiety. I mean, this is 30 years of clinical experience in a nutshell. Anxiety is when we imagine worse things to come.
Fear of future pain.
Yeah, and your brain has two main jobs: to keep you safe and to prove you right. And both of those get in our way all the time. So it will literally prevent you from moving forward, trying to keep you safe. But notice that all that's imaginary to start with. How do you feel when you imagine or predict or expect that what's coming is even better than what you've already got? How do you feel?
Hopeful. Great.
I feel
Yes.
awesome. And this is another topic I'm probably going to go into at some point. I could write a book on this. I'm addicted to anticipation. I love anticipation. And you're describing something to me now. I hope that I'm anticipating something positive or that will serve me right.
Right.
Because I almost enjoy, and I believe there's science behind this, but the anticipation of something is greater than the actual thing occurring sometimes.
The holidays with little kids, like Christmas, the best part is all of the buildup and the anticipation and the expectation. Sometimes it's a letdown on the day of, but exactly what you're saying here. That brings joy now. You don't have to wait for the thing to manifest. You get to experience that now. And that energy actually helps you to create the thing that you intend to create.
Right. And it seems to me that
precedes outcome.
Right. It seems to me that anxiety will stifle any type of movement. It drowns out that energy and progress and paralyze you. You cannot move. It puts your cement,
right.
Your feet in the cement. But that hopeful anticipation of something better motivates to move forward and create it, make it happen.
Yes.
So I want to bring up something that was really helpful to me when we met you. Is whenever we would go see you with an issue, I love that you didn't spend any time, or that I can remember, going back to the why we're experiencing what we're experiencing, or why are we here? Like, we didn't go back to childhood to blame someone or an event. It felt like you put us in a positive state by going to, could be worse. Now, where do you want to go? And you guided us to where we wanted to get, which I think at the time we didn't even know ourselves. But the fact that you asked us and made us make a goal, I guess, of where we want to reach, it gave us a path, and we were already in a creation mode that was filled with hope and happiness that was so much easier. So it felt like it was not easy, but
We could choose where we were headed,
yeah,
right? We knew, well, and part of it is, you're
it
not,
was hopeful.
yeah, it's hopeful. And I joke sometimes, you're never lost if you don't know where you're going.
Mm.
But if you can imagine where you want to go, now start investing in, what's going to get you there. And I can't
Right.
imagine doing that in a state of anxiety and worry and
So
fear.
Again, it didn't change where we were. Sometimes where we were was dark, but it gave us hope to move forward. And it was because of the practice of gratitude, we were able to see all the good in the hard things. And in certain situations, even though they felt very dire, we were able to see blessings pouring around us. So many blessings that we would have never seen had we not had this practice.
Yes. So powerful what you're sharing. You're describing the energy. I've said a couple of times today, energy precedes outcome. And what we think matters. And you're always right about how you feel. I mean, how you feel is 100% consistent with the way your brain is doing these two processes: evaluation of what it is and creation of what is to be. So I'm not here to tell people how to think. I don't have that kind of authority. I mostly want you to see that you are thinking in those two different modes, evaluation mode and creation mode, the way we've talked about it here, and the way it's described in that mini book. And once again, go grab it, you guys. drpauljenkins.com/sparks.
And you really
Great.
ought to. We have practiced these principles. We've had those. We have that. We have his book too. I mean, this tells quite a story, but there's a lot more that Dr. Paul has to offer beyond that. But that is such a illuminating resource that you ought to check out. And there's something I want to bring up. Several years ago, you presented in front of a group of men that I was participating with, and you
Yeah, I
explained
remember that.
and you explained the concept of evaluation. And we met a couple weeks later with the same guys, and there was one of them who just really had a tough time with it. He was not having any of it, and I was like, "Wait, what? Like you don't?" Like it just seemed like so clear and obvious to me. And he couldn't grasp the idea of comparing to something worse. He's like, but that's focusing on the negative, right? And I'm sure you've heard it a gazillion times. That
Yeah.
Well, how is that positive to focus on the negative? And so maybe you can speak to that briefly. We're kind of going back and forth here, but I love the model. I love the evaluation model, and maybe tell me where I'm wrong here, or chime in. But for me, this judgment and evaluation model that you have, it allows me to focus that it could be something worse. It isn't worse. It's what it is. And I'm not comparing myself to say I am better than that. I'm not saying I'm better than that person.
Right.
I'm saying my circumstance, my pain, my feeling, that's what I'm observing. Yet when we flip to the creation side, we say, okay, now that I've evaluated, and now I'm thinking about what I'm thinking, now I'm empowered to create. And now I get to choose. And that's when I get to imagine sky's the limit, right? And that's when I look at the positivity. There's nothing stopping me from going all the way.
One of the first thoughts that came to me as you were describing that is a hammer. It's like a carpenter's hammer. You know how the head of that hammer has two ends? There's a blunt, flat face, is what it's called, of the hammer. It's for the purpose of driving nails. And on the other side is a claw. It has a very different purpose. It's for pulling nails out. You don't use the claw to pound a nail, and you can't use the face to pull one out. It doesn't work that way. Very similarly, and you can't turn this off. This is how I would respond to your colleague if he were to ask me directly about this. I'm not telling you how to think. I want you to see that you already are, and you can't turn off evaluation. You are judging. You're what it is. And the only way to do that is in comparison to something. Notice that you're doing it. If you say this is hard, I know you're comparing it to something easier, right? I mean, we can deduce that. Is this good or bad? I don't know. Is my son's cancer good news or bad news? I don't know. Compared to no cancer, this sucks. But compared to worse cancer or sudden death, I'll take this. So we're not, like you were saying, we're not going out there comparing ourselves to people who have it worse. That's not the purpose. I want you to see that your brain is already judging it, and then you get to choose. Until you see it as a choice, it's not. And you're going to roll with what you already think, which comes from your programming, and that can be really strong. Our programming. Like English, for example, we were programmed to speak English by people who didn't give us a choice.
Yeah, well, you and I were. She was programmed to speak Spanish. English was a little bit more of a struggle for her.
Kathy had a different process because your mother tongue, your native language is Spanish. And you didn't choose that. And I should have clarified that when I said, whatever your parents programmed you with wasn't a choice. Your second language typically is a choice. And it's more than a choice, because then you have to put in the work to reprogram your brain, and that original programming still is stronger for a long, long time. You can develop the kind of fluency that Kathy has if you put in enough practice.
Yes.
Right? I'm fluent in Finnish. I had to choose it and I had to practice it, and English is still easier.
Well,
Finnish.
For some
but
of
my
us.
Finnish friends don't agree. They think English is harder.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, because of our programming. So you're up against that a little bit.
Yeah.
And when something painful or difficult occurs, like cancer, your programming is going to say, this is bad. I'm just saying pause and notice that you're judging it. Yes. What you do with it after that's totally up to you.
Well, you've described what you did with it. And you said something that you are a black belt in.
Positivity.
Right? You said, oh, crap, I'm a black belt in this, but you've been putting in the reps. You've been putting in the work. So could you describe or give maybe some tips to, and you've described a little bit of how this gratitude challenge, the 25-5, but maybe describe as a helpful starter for someone to begin a gratitude practice, how to implement.
That's what I would start with. I call it the gratitude power up. And power up because we're not going to do the wimpy gratitude list. You can put some of the easy stuff on your list, but if you do 25 a day for 5 days, it will introduce a new possibility, a new way of thinking to your own mind. And you will discover things that might surprise you about what it is.
When I like that you said 25, because when you're getting to day 4, maybe even day 2, you might start to struggle.
Yeah, you got to dig deep.
And then you will have to dig deeper.
Oh, does that seem like a lot? Because the assignment used to be 100 a day.
So, well, and we're evaluating here because the gratitude journals that we give out have an easier barrier to entry. 3 things you're grateful for today, and 3 things that are going to make today awesome that you have control over. That's how you start the day. I love this 25-5. And so, let's be clear on this. This is 25 total things per day and not repeated on day 2, 3, 4. This is, and for how long?
A unique list every day, at least half of which is about your hard thing, something that's difficult, frustrating, painful, kicking your butt, something that your brain has been saying is bad. Pick that. And if you don't have something, we can arrange to get you something.
Oh, I think we'll be able to find it. So my experience obviously is, the whole reason we're talking with you right now is because we believe in it. And we're grateful to you because of it, because you challenged us to do it. And now we've benefited so much from it that we want to share it with other people. We can't teach anybody anything. We just want to say,
this worked for us.
It worked.
It might also work for you.
And we want other people to have the gift of gratitude. And that's a choice.
Dr. Paul.
It does work. And hopefully I've helped to explain a little bit about why it works from a psychological standpoint. But It's absolutely consistent.
Where can people learn more from you?
I'm thinking just grab the mini book. I mean, you can find me on YouTube and on my podcast and stuff like that, but go grab the mini book because this is for you. And once you grab the mini book, we're going to be in touch. You can unsubscribe from my email list anytime you want. But yes, I'm going to send you an email after you download my mini book, and you can fire me whenever you want. But I'm still going to give you the free
I will
gift.
say, check out his YouTube channel. It is amazing. So much parenting advice. That's where I go when I'm not sure what to do, which is almost every single day. We go through something new seasons, new stages, new ages, and I will review a lot. I mean, you have so much information about parenting. So, and it's positive. Like it really gives you hope. I've read a couple of books that have left me a little bit down, maybe in a realistic way, but your advice has always been so useful. Tools that I can try and test, and it always helps.
That's awesome. I'm honored to be on your team. You've heard that from me before, and I
have
mean
heard,
it.
and we are honored that you are on our team.
Thank you.
Dr. Paul, we love you. We're grateful for you. Thank you for sharing some time with us.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you for including me in this. I love the sparks of gratitude. You guys go share this with anybody you can think of because this is good stuff and it's important to get it out there.
See you next time, everybody.